Good evening. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. I'm back. I think it might be working this time. I had a crazy lag and a delay last time. So, this is Naomi, the How To Chick, child of God, wife, mom, an attorney, a coach, a mentor, a speaker. I know that you can do anything, but I need you to remember that you can't do everything and choose wisely. Tonight, I'm talking about the power in unplugging. And I have been talking about self care as an ongoing theme. I say it all the time and I mean it from the bottom of my spirit. Self care is not getting your nails done, keeping your hair done, or your eyelashes done. Self care is not buying fancy purses or giving yourself bubble baths or treating yourself to a glass of wine or a bottle of wine or a shopping spree. Self care is a concerted effort to ensure that your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health are aligned. And self care is work. Self care is not all fun. And I would submit that for many of us, our financial health falls by the wayside in trying very hard to keep up with the self care Joneses. And so I'm going to talk to you tonight about the power of unplugging because busy season is about to begin. I say about to begin, like as a mom, um, busy season is not year round. Busy season is not every day. School is in, busy season is on, it's here. But the holidays are about to start. Many of us are at that point where our parents are no longer hosting, we're the hosts. Many of us have multiple generations coming to our homes. Many of us are traveling or managing affairs for family members in multiple generations. And it's a lot and it's heavy. And just this past week, it feels like a month ago, even though it ended yesterday, my husband and I celebrated our 15-year anniversary. And I took some time to sit in gratitude and think about the things that I've learned in these 15 years, the things that I have changed, and the things that have changed me in these seasons. And I wanted to come on tonight and talk to you a little bit about what happens when we exercise the capacity that we each have to fully unplug. Many of us live hectic, frenetic lives that require us to compartmentalize a lot of who we are and what we do. We're constantly tired and overwhelmed. We're often stressed and anxious. And we find ourselves competing in the self care Olympics, just trying to stay afloat. Last week, my husband and I took a bucket list trip for me. We traveled up to New England and went to see the leaves change, went into Canada. It was a beautiful trip. But when I was packing for the trip, I said to myself, self, do not take your computer. At the time, I was talking about my home computer because I have a home computer and a work computer, and I have work to do on all fronts most of the time. I said, I'm not taking my computer. Well, dear viewer, I would have you know that I did not only pack my own computer, I also packed my work computer. I also packed my iPad. I also packed 4 books. And I gave myself an ambitious list of personal items that I needed to complete since I was logged off from work in my own businesses, in my own life, things that I felt that I needed to catch up on. And I made a list. It was a ridiculous list, a list that would have probably taken me 3 weeks to complete if I even said about to complete it. And then I got to Vermont and I walked outside and I had no reception and the Wi Fi was horrendous, but the trees were beautiful and the sky was sunny and the mountains were calling. And I walked and I walked and I walked some more. And I looked at the animals and I looked at the birds and I looked at the lakes and I looked at the mountains and I looked at the water. And I sang and I walked some more. And then I took a little nap. And then I ate some food. And then I did that for about 3 days in a row. And I have to tell you that this was one of the most restorative vacations I've taken in at least 10 years. But the reason is really an outlier. It's not that I intended to walk, and it's not that I intended to be enamored with nature. It's not that I intended to spend hours sitting on a an island in the middle of a lake, just looking out at the water and expressing my gratitude to God for the beauty. It's the fact, dear viewer, that there was no Wi-Fi. There was no signal almost anywhere I went. So even if I'd wanted to work, my work computer requires two-factor authentication. I couldn't get the messages. The internet where we were staying was sketch, and I kept getting kicked off the VPN. And it was a sign for me that it was time to unplug. But I really wonder what would have happened if I hadn't. Because I was tired, I was overwhelmed, I was burned out, and I was so exhausted with trying to balance and juggle and figure things out that I hadn't taken any time to just be in a very, very, very long time. And so, what I learned and what I want to share tonight is just the power of unplugging. I've talked before about Elijah, about how, and you guys know I'm unapologetically a God girl, is always going to be God. I'm sorry. So Elijah, and this is in First Kings. No, this is in Second Kings. I don't know why I said that. He goes up to Mount Carmel and he defeats the prophets of Baal, and he has the resounding victory, and everyone sees and knows that God is God. And immediately after that, he collapses because he hears Jezebel say that she's going to kill him, right? And she says, be it, my name is on the line if you're not dead by tomorrow. And Elijah knew. She'd been looking for him for years. She'd been trying to kill him for years. And God had been hiding him and providing for him for years. It's not that he didn't know, it's that he was tired. And I've been that tired that I couldn't see that the answer to the question that I was asking again and again was right in front of my face. So tired that I couldn't make heads or tails of something that I do every single day for a living. So tired that I'm going on autopilot through every moment of my day and I'm not being intentional with the time I'm spending with my family. So tired that the constant refrain, and I have to remind myself, right, of the power of my words, but the constant refrain is, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And what I was reminded of was what happened to Elijah when he bowed in defeat and put his head between his knees. And he said, God, I wish I were just dead. Can you go ahead and take me now? God didn't even rebuke him. I mean, the drama was real, and the drama is always real for all of us. But the drama was real, but instead God sent an angel, and the angel brought him a little plate of food, covered him up, gave him a little time to take a little nappy-nap. And then when he felt a little better, and that took a couple of tries, right? He woke up, there was more food. He ate that. He went back to sleep, woke up again, ate the food, went back to sleep. When he was restored, that's when he got up, right? And he ran ahead of chariots. There are things that we are not able to do because we are not mastering the art of unplugging. I have not felt as refreshed or as restored in my life as I have today coming back, even though I got, 5 hours of sleep last night coming off of my trip. I woke up and I felt clear. And I've gone on many trips. I won't call them vacations, trips. In this past 12 months or so. And I know that in many cases, I had the opportunity to unplug. My responsibilities were less there, right? There were no children. There was no job pinging me. I had a day or two off here or there. But what was I doing? I was anxiously worrying and anticipating what needed to be done. I was forcing myself to work on lists and piles and to do and doom. There's a thing we do. I think it's called doom scrolling, where we know we have something important to do, but we know we're also very tired. And so instead of doing the thing, which would remove the anxiety, right? Because the thing would then be done. Instead of doing the thing, we get on our phones and we just scroll and scroll and scroll, and we check out this thing and we check out that thing and we click here and we click there. And next thing we know, we look up and it's 1 a.m, it's 2 a.m. And not only have we not done the thing, We've eaten up our sleep. So we're going to be tired and cranky tomorrow, making it even less likely that we are going to do the thing. Unplugging is necessary, but unplugging has to be done right. Unplugging means leaving behind the guilt and the anxiety and the fear about what we didn't get done or what we should have gotten done in the time that we had. Unplugging means allowing yourself to understand that whatever you miss in this 24-hour news cycle is not going to kill you. You have to allow your mind, your body, and your spirit to get fully quiet. And that is really hard in the lives that we live. Not everybody lives in a place with very little limited reception. Not everybody lives a life where you can just choose to turn everything off and walk for 24 hours or 2 or 3 days. But even if you don't live in such a location, we have an opportunity to do that every week. The Bible says there remains therefore a rest for the people of God. He calls us to enter into a rest every week, and he's made a whole day for us to rest. That day is the Sabbath. And so for my believers, I encourage us to research and understand what the Sabbath is for. Remember, the Sabbath was created for us. We weren't created for the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a part of the commandments that show our love to God, because remember, his commandment is love me with all your heart and soul, and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. The fourth commandment, which says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, is a way that we show our love to God. It is service to God to keep the Sabbath, but it's also service to ourselves to keep it properly, to unplug, to release the to-do lists, the cares, and the worries, to separate yourself from the fear and the anxiety of the unknown and the undone, and to remove yourself completely. And this is something I'm still working on, so this is not a judgment. Remove yourself from the news cycle, from the social media cycle. Allow your brain to rest. If you do that, you will find greater restoration in those hours than you would otherwise find. And I've always found the Sabbath to be one of my favorite day of the week. I'm not going to say one of, it's my favorite day of the week, full stop. Not just because I have the opportunity to serve, but because God created that day to give me rest. And even on days when I'm busy and going full stop in service of others, I'm still being poured into. By the time that I am choosing to unplug from the cares of the world, from the concerns of the world, from my to-do list at work, from my to-do list at home, from my bills, from the text messages and the emails that I haven't responded to, and from everything in our culture that tells us that we have to be constantly plugged in. In the book of John, Jesus says, "Abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches." If we are plugged into God, if you've ever kind of plugged in an appliance that just has a plug, in 2024, they give you these little USBs now. They don't even give you the base cord anymore because you can kind of plug it into a USB port. But if you've had an appliance and you've plugged it in, you can't plug an appliance into two plugs at the same time. It's not possible. There are no splitters. You can plug multiple appliances into one plug with a splitter, but a single appliance can only be plugged into one plug. And we have to remind ourselves, whether or not you're observing a Sabbath, whether or not you're choosing to actively spend time during the week unplugging and allowing your mind and spirit to be restored, you can only be plugged into one thing. So if you are still on Sabbath, plugged in to your social media cycle, plugged in to your news cycle, plugged in to what's going on your to-do list, you may not be actively doing the work, but if you're thinking about it, if you're planning out what you're going to do when the sun sets, if you're writing that email or text message in your head, are you really unplugged? The power of unplugging is the power of restoration. If we do it properly, we will get the rest that we need. And if we don't, we will continue to live lives of fatigue, exhaustion, hamsters on a wheel, wishing, wondering, hoping, and praying for a rest that can't come because we won't unplug. Guys, I hope that you're going to do better than me. I hope that you're going to remind yourself that you deserve a rest, full stop. It doesn't matter what you didn't get done. It doesn't matter how many to-do lists you have incomplete, how long those lists are, how important the things on those lists are. If you burn out, you will accomplish nothing. Learn the power of unplugging. Practice it. Try it. One time. And if it doesn't work, come back and tell me about myself. But I promise you, you will leave restored. I just had about 5 days of being unplugged, and it was the best thing that I could have done for my spirit. I know everybody doesn't have the capacity to do that right now, but try one day. One day without worry, one day without fear, one day without stress, one day living in gratitude, one day focused on praise, and one day in which you allow yourself to plug into the one source of our strength, our hope, and our lives. Remember, you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. Choose wisely. Good night.